Welcome to this explainer. Settle in and listen closely. Today, we're going to take a calm, structured look at a reality that millions of people live with every single day, but almost nobody ever dares to speak about out loud. We're diving deep into the dark psychology of family estrangement. Specifically, we'll be examining the agonizing reasons why adult children make the ultimate choice to cut all ties with their parents. This is about finally giving a voice to the hidden pain you carry. That deafening, heavy silence after the final cut. That's what hits you first, isn't it? The immediate, haunting quiet that falls the exact second you finally sever contact. You block the number, you close the door, and suddenly the chaos stops. But you know as well as I do, that silence isn't just peaceful. It is incredibly heavy. It's loaded with decades of unspoken history, tension, and absolute grief. I want you to recognize that this silence is the profound aftermath of a psychological war you never asked to fight. A silence that forces you to sit totally alone with the sheer magnitude of what you've just done.
Section 1. The unspoken taboo. A silence society demands.
When you experience that heavy silence in your own life, it's almost immediately met by a totally different, much colder kind of silence from the outside world. Estrangement is not an act of hatred. It is a necessary boundary, and it is a vital act of survival. But when people hear you've cut off your parents, they instinctively assume it was done out of malice or anger or vengeance. The culture we live in demands that we forgive, forget, and maintain the illusion of the happy family, no matter what the psychological cost is to you. But you know the real truth? It was never, ever about punishing them. It was entirely about protecting yourself. You didn't walk away out of hate. You walked away because you had to survive. So why do we judge the survivor instead of the system? Society is just so incredibly quick to point the finger at the adult child. We label them as difficult, ungrateful, or cold-hearted, but we rarely dare to look behind the curtain to examine what that child actually endured. We shame the person who finally found the strength to set a boundary, while completely ignoring the toxic, deeply damaging behaviors that made that boundary absolutely necessary in the very first place. Section 2, the toxic family system, the hidden past. Let's peel back the layers and look at what actually goes on behind closed doors. Think about the invisible damage for a second. Chronic emotional neglect, shrinking yourself just to keep the peace, bearing the immense weight of the family dysfunction. You spent your entire childhood and honestly much of your adult life making yourself smaller so that someone else could take up all the room in the house. You learned to read the room, to police your own tone, to manage their completely unpredictable moods, and to just swallow your own needs. You were functioning as the emotional shock absorber for a broken system, quietly carrying a burden that was never yours to hold. Section 3, the tipping point, when staying hurts more. Listen, this isn't a decision you woke up and made on a whim one sunny morning. It was a slow, agonizing buildup of 1,000 small cuts. You were facing an impossible choice, the cost of staying versus the cost of leaving. For years, the cost of leaving felt dangerously high, right? The crippling guilt, the fear of severe judgments, the terrifying loss of whatever tiny fragments of family you actually had. But then, the scales tipped. The psychological fog finally lifted, and the reality became utterly impossible to ignore. The emotional, psychological, and physical toll of staying engaged with that toxicity became fatal to your well-being. The cost of staying became infinitely higher than the cost of leaving. You realized, with terrifying clarity, that if you stayed, you would lose yourself entirely. Section 4, Grief for the Living, the hidden aftermath. And here's the thing. Once you make the absolute hardest decision of your life, the pain doesn't just vanish into thin air. You are forced into this bizarre, agonizing position of mourning a parent who is still walking this earth, going about their life totally disconnected from yours. The wound of not being chosen by the person who was supposed to choose you unconditionally. That right there is the core trauma. It's a unique, highly complex grief that explains exactly why some people never fully recover from the neglect. You see, you aren't just mourning the parent you had to leave behind. You are mourning the parent you never had in the first place. You are grieving the unconditional love, the safety, and the fierce protection that was biologically owed to you, but was just never delivered. Section 5, an act of survival, the final truth. You did not leave because you stopped loving them. This is perhaps the heaviest burden you carry, the deepest fear you harbor in those quiet, lonely moments of the night. Society tells you that if you leave, it means you're cold, that you just don't love your family. But that is a lie. The separation was not born out of an absence of love. In many cases, you loved them desperately. You tried absolutely everything. You just couldn't fix them. You left because staying was destroying you. You didn't fail. You didn't just give up easily. You endured until your very spirit was breaking into pieces. The estrangement had to happen for your own survival. You chose to save yourself from drowning, and that is not a crime. It is a vital necessity. If this explainer resonated with you, there is so much more for us to uncover together. Ask yourself this: if society finally stopped protecting broken systems, how many more survivors would finally find their voice? Subscribe to Dark Archive. The archive is open.